Welcome everyone to today's presentation. We're going to be getting started here in just a minute or two. Please stay on the line and be on the lookout for some quick instructions before we dive into today's presentation. Thank you for joining us. Welcome everyone to today's webinar presentation. We're thrilled and excited to bring together such a wonderful group of speakers. Before we get started here, a few quick moments of housekeeping. If you do have a question today, please use the Q&A button and click on that button to answer to ask any questions that you may have. There are folks monitoring that Q&A to be able to answer and respond to any questions. The U.S. Small Business Administration does not endorse Public-Private Strategies Institute. And this is your notification that this session is being live streamed and recorded. And finally, when you are asking questions, please do not share any personal information in the chat. And we're going to get started here now. So it's my pleasure to hand it over to Renee Johnson to kick us off. Renee, over to you.
Thank you so much, Colin. Hi, my name is Renee Johnson. I'm Senior Advisor here at Public-Private Strategies Institute. We are so excited to have each of you here for the U.S. Small Business Administration SBA webinar series, Invest in America, Small Business Tools and Resources. Today, we'll be celebrating Disability Awareness Month, while also uplifting resources business owners and leaders can utilize from recent legislation to help businesses thrive in today's economy. If we can go to the next slide. Today's Invest in America's goal is to connect businesses with critical resources and information, including how the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARP, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, also known as BILL, the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as IRA, and CHIPS and Science Act may provide opportunities to help you thrive. These briefings will highlight steps you can take now to learn and take advantage of existing programs, updates regarding programs and recent policy announcements, and discussion of important and timely policy issues. Now I have the honor to introduce Anna Pern, Senior Advisor to the White House Office of Public Engagement. Anna Pern is a disabled Asian American community organizer who recently joined the White House Office of Public Engagement as a Senior Advisor for the Asian and disability communities. She previously served as Special Advisor in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Community Living. Prior to joining OPE, Anna served as the Presidential Transition Team and was an appointee at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development during the Obama-Biden administration. When Anna became a parent of two wonderful children with multiple disabilities, a federally qualified health center asked her to help establish a safety net for immigrants with disabilities. And without further ado, we are so excited to have Anna here today.
Thank you so much, Renee, and thank you all for joining us today. July marks Disability Pride Month, and as Renee mentioned, my name is Anna Pern. I serve as the White House Office of Public Engagement Senior Advisor for both the aging and disability communities. And just as background, I am a disabled daughter of immigrants. My father came to this country first as a waiter working in restaurants, and later became a small business owner himself. And so we know firsthand the generosity and advice that we have benefited from other small business owners of all backgrounds. In many communities, small business owners are trusted community leaders and resource navigators. And when small businesses thrive, communities thrive. So just a quick explanation about the Office of Public Engagement. We serve as a front door to the White House, and we are responsible for connecting the Biden-Harris administration directly to people all across the country. At OPE, we work with community leaders at all levels to ensure the diverse perspectives and localized needs of people across America are informing the work of the President and Vice President. Equally, we work with stakeholders to spread awareness of new administration policies and programs that provide benefits and protections for their community, and equip them with the resources to make sure help gets to the folks who need it. I really want to thank our co-host today for making this webinar available during Disability Pride Month. 33 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act, a landmark piece of legislation, was signed into law and ensured that more than 61 million Americans have equal access and inclusion in society. And entrepreneurship is no different. The Biden-Harris administration is working hard to ensure that the American dream is open and accessible to all. This afternoon in Philadelphia, President Biden spoke more about his plan, Bidenomics, which is rooted in the recognition that the best way to grow the economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. And it's an economic vision centered around 3 pillars: making smart public investments in America, empowering and educating workers to grow the middle class, and promoting competition to lower costs and help entrepreneurs and small businesses thrive. The administration has delivered more than $450 billion in emergency relief funding to over 6 million small businesses during the pandemic. During 2021 and 2022, Americans filed a record 10.5 million applications to start up small businesses. So today we're going to be hearing from SBA and others about some resources that are available to help. I did want to mention that in addition to SBA's amazing actions that you'll learn about later on, the Department of Defense has also rolled out its small business strategy that simplifies entry points for small businesses into the defense marketplace. The Treasury Department has directed billions of dollars towards small businesses through the American Rescue Plan's State Small Business Credit Initiative. Through that, the Treasury Department has distributed nearly $10 billion to states, territories, and tribal governments to expand access to capital for small businesses. They also launched the Emergency Capital Investment Program that has funded more than $8.3 billion in investments to support the efforts of community financial institutions to provide loans, grants, and other assistance, including to small and minority-owned businesses. And through my various roles within the administration and throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to meet and speak with small business owners and listen to their journeys. I recently spoke with a small business owner, Minal Madkar, President and CEO of Aura Seating, a California-based business design that manufactures eco-friendly furniture. Minal shared with me that she was born with scoliosis. She became an architect and soon discovered in her field that she had a very unique experience. Not only was she often one of the few female architects in her workplaces, she also had a disability and found that workplaces were not accessible or designed for people like her. And rather than kind of view her disability as a limitation, she viewed it as something that gave her a strength, a different perspective. So she had reached out with encouragement to Ben Raju, Director of Program Management for SBA's Office of Field Operations currently, but at the time he was the local district director. In 2010, together with her husband, Minal decided to start her own business to design furniture that would meet her needs, but also help meet the needs of people in their workplaces and in their homes with more accessible furniture. Ben had provided all the information she and her husband needed to guide her through the process. SBA provided her with loans. She took classes with her local Small Business Development Center, and with the help of SBA-backed funding and pandemic relief, Minal's company was able to grow and recover. She also just got her 8A certification and is in the process of major work with hotels, casinos, and businesses. So I say this during Disability Pride Month because there's oftentimes still a stigma associated with having a disability. And here we have an example of a disabled business owner who really used that as a strength and is using her perspective to make the world more accessible for everyone. And I'm really excited that SBA is doing more. You're going to hear more from John Fleming, But not only does SBA help provide low interest loans and capital, they also provide helpful technical assistance and expertise just to help prepare businesses to compete for federal contracts, other programs that, to ensure that at least 23% of all federal contracting dollars go to small businesses. And this year, SBA became the federal government's certifying body for service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. So now disabled veterans can go directly to SBA to obtain their certification. So it is truly an honor to be a part of today's webinar. I'm going to allow my colleague John to kind of go into what the SBA can do to help, but I do want to mention their website, sba.gov, is accessible to people with visual, auditory, motor, and cognitive disabilities. There's information available in multiple languages, and people who are deaf or hard of hearing or have a communication disability can also dial 711 to access TTY or TRS services, and a communications assistant would then assist them with the call. So again, the Biden-Harris administration, all of us here, strongly believe that our nation is a place where everyone can and should participate, where everyone's contribution is valued, and where everyone has the freedom to pursue their dreams and build the future they desire. So we're really excited to work with you to improve our resources. And thank you again, small business owners, and especially to those disabled business owners. We're here to support you and help you thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was so many great pieces of information, and we will make sure all of you receive links and all of those things that Anna mentioned, and all the things that we're going to also subsequently mention in this webinar via an email that you will receive with the presentation as well as the video as well for today's presentation. Next, we're going to hear from Jill Houghton, who is President and Chief Executive Officer of Disability In, which is the leading global nonprofit organization for advancing business disability inclusion and equity. Her more than 25 years of diverse leadership experience driving disability inclusion was ignited by challenges she experienced having a learning disability. Ms. Houghton learned a team of talented and diverse individuals, including people with disabilities, who are working to build an inclusive global economy that enables people with disabilities to participate fully and meaningfully. Their work has empowered over 400 leading brands to advance disability inclusion and equality through groundbreaking programs, including Inclusion Works, the Disability Equality Index, the CEO Letter on Disability Inclusion, Next Gen Leaders, Supplier Diversity and Disability-Owned Businesses Certification, and more. And without further ado, Ms. Jill Houghton.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today and talk about such an important issue around business ownership. At Disability In, we are the leading certification body for disability-owned businesses around the globe. And Anna, I love that story that you shared about the business owner who utilized their need for accessibility to be the basis of building their business. I think when we think about people with disabilities and this being Disability Pride Month, and we're on the precipice of getting ready to celebrate the 33rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act next week, the beautiful thing about disability is that we are 1 in 4 Americans, right? And what we know is we are 2 times more likely to be small business owners. So at Disability In, what we're here to do is to provide small business owners with that opportunity to get certified as what we call Adobe, or Disability Owned Business Enterprise. Adobe's and certification is for entities that are 51% owned, operated, controlled, and managed by a person or persons with disabilities. And when you go through that certification process, The beautiful thing about being a certified Dobie is that we work in partnership with the other certification bodies in the US that certify women, that certify LGBT-owned businesses, that certify minority-owned businesses, and across all areas of diversity. So if you're a business owner, and for example, you have certification through the National LGBT Chamber, then you can actually speed up your certification process with us if you can demonstrate that you meet the definition of disability. Now, once you're certified, certification isn't for everybody, but for those that want to use it, it can become a differentiator, right? It can become that opportunity to differentiate your business from your competitors. It also gives you access to lots of great opportunities. So for example, last week, we were just together with 2,500 people in person and 2,000 people online. And in that mix, we had certified disability-owned business enterprises who were matchmaking, right? They were meeting with corporations who want to do business with disability-owned businesses. So there was almost 500 matchmaking meetings that occurred that will eventually, over time, lead to business for those businesses. The other thing to notate is we have mentorship programs and get you access to each other. So, it's not just about finding ways to do business with the government or finding ways to do business with other companies, but sometimes it's finding ways to do business with other Dobies. Because when you team, you can effectively go after contracts and maybe diversify your offerings and differentiate yourself from your competitors. So there's a lot of opportunities. What do we know about Dobies? We know that they cross every area of diversity. We know that Dobies are actually 10 times more likely to turn around and employ people with disabilities. So why does that matter? Well, we know why that matters. Why that matters is because people with disabilities are much more likely to be under and unemployed, right? So business ownership provides that opportunity to be employed and to turn around and to employ others with disabilities. I think when Anna talked about accessibility, that's so key. And I love the fact that doing business with the Small Business Administration is an accessible experience. If we reflect back on 33 years ago to when the ADA was passed, it was about access to public transportation, buildings, economic opportunity. And while so much progress has been made, we also know so much more work is ahead of us. And the new front door, and it's not really new, right? But it's digital. It's our phones, it's our apps, it's our websites. And so, one of the beautiful things that you as business owners can do is to help advance the work around accessibility in this world that needs to be done. We know that websites and apps and all of these things need to be accessible. And there are many small business owners who happen to have disabilities, who happen to be working in this space and have lots of services to offer and to sell to companies and to government. So, happy Disability Pride. If you're looking for resources, you can go to disabilityin.org. You can click on what we do, and you can scroll down to supplier diversity. And there's lots of information there about what it means to get certified, what the process is, and what's in it for you and your business to go through that journey. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity.
No, thank you, Jill. We truly appreciate you and the work of your organization. Thank you so much for everything you do. Now we're going to go to John Fleming, who is the Regional Administrator for the Mid-Atlantic region of the U.S. Small Business Administration. John was appointed in 2021 as the Regional Administrator for the U.S. Small Business Administration's Mid-Atlantic region. In this role, Mr. Fleming is responsible for the delivery and management of the agency's programs throughout Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Mr. Fleming started his SBA career in 1982 and has served in various positions, including District Director, Chief Credit Officer, and Public Information Officer. And with that, we are going to Mr. Fleming.
All right, thank you, Renee. Just have a few slides here that we want to go through. And, as was said earlier, all of our programs and materials are 508 compliant. So we take it very seriously, access for disabled folks. And you'll find that all of our programs and materials do comply with that. So SBA in general, and I'll try to stay on time here. We help you start, grow, expand, and recover it. And next slide, please. So what is a small business? You'll find that about 98% of all businesses in the country are coming under the definition of small under SBA size standards. Sometimes it's based on employees, sometimes it's based on revenue, depending on the industry. So suffice to say that there's a real good chance you're a small business now, or you are an aspiring small business. Next slide, please. This is if there's one slide I want you to remember today, it's this one. These are the 4 C's of SBA, the 4 areas that we assist. Sometimes I give presentations using just this one slide. You'll see the many tools that we have underneath these 4 C's. In particular, the contracting program, which has been mentioned a couple of times, we have a special set aside for service disabled small businesses under that program. Not only that 23% goes to small business, but we also have a goal for service disabled. This is particularly near and dear to my heart. I'm a service disabled veteran myself, so we're greatly appreciated for that program. Next slide, please. So part of our network, part of the tools that we offer are the resource centers, resource partners that we have, meaning that we fund some of their operations. And you see the 3 main resource centers that we have, resource partners, I should say, SCORE, SBDC, and the Women's Center. They are a network of free counseling, low-cost training, business advisors, it was mentioned earlier, technical assistance. Our goal is to have one of these partners in every county in America. We certainly have coverage, so we're never too far away. SBA.gov is a good place to start, and you can navigate to one of a center near you. Next, please. So let's talk about capital. That's one of the things that we've most known for, I guess. And the way our capital has exploded over the last couple of years, not only through our COVID relief programs, but also the SBA-backed loans. And you see some of the competitive advantages you have when working with an SBA loan versus a non-SBA loan. So we work with startup businesses. Our terms are not only competitive, but they're superior, meaning that you can stretch your loan amount or your loan term out. Instead of a bank offering you a 5 or 7 year loan under SBA, you can go as far out as 20 to 25 years, and it gives you a lower payment, longer maturity, and a big advantage. There's also certain industries that lenders will not lend to. So SBA with our loan guarantee helps mitigate that risk and helps more people get into business, and also lower risk for the lenders. Next slide, please. So how does this work? I mentioned it's a startup, or if you need a line of credit. In terms of the money that you can use it for, you can use it for purchasing land, equipment, normal business operations, export products. We do have some specialized programs for exporting. So the guarantee is just that. So it works a lot like a student loan. A lender provides the dollars. The government, through the SBA, provides a guarantee, meaning that if there's a default on the loan, we pay the bank back And the small business owner or starting out small business owner gets a loan that they may not otherwise qualify for. So it's a win-win for everybody. It works a lot like a VA home loan or a student loan. It's guaranteed by the government, but we leverage our banking partners in order to provide more access to capital. Next slide. Federal contracting. We have also talked about that a lot today, and there's a 23% goal for small businesses. Sometimes you may say to yourself, well, you know, I'm not that big of a business. I'm not sure I can handle a federal contract. But the big thing here is to don't dismiss this opportunity. This is we have the breakdown here of what we have here. So and sometimes it depends on who owns the business, meaning under the 8A program or the woman-owned program or the service disabled program. But we also have what's called hub zone. And that doesn't matter who owns the business, as long as you are located, the majority of your employees are located in a low to moderate income area, you can qualify for hub zone set aside contracts. And if you're starting out micro small, you may want to just get yourself on the database. And you could see the certifysba.gov. If you put yourself on a database, a lot of times you don't even need to know a lot about government contracting. Other small businesses will sometimes reach out to you to fulfill contracts. So they can be the lead, they can be the prime contractor, and you can act as a subcontractor with a lot less hassles and a lot easier to perform. Next slide, please. Okay, crisis. This is our last C. This is it's usually this is reserved for when there's a flood, there's a fire. There's something we actually used it for active duty military that were called up. So if your business is affected by that, or even your home, in normal times we can help rebuild your home. We can help with rebuild your business if you've been affected by a natural disaster. Now, we all know what happened under COVID. We enacted this program right away under the economic injury portion. So in addition to what we did under the Paycheck Protection Program, we also activated economic injury. And this was the first time, actually second time it was done nationwide. The first time was after 9/11. And then, of course, during COVID, it was an unprecedented time for SBA, and the services we provided were on a scale that none of us could imagine. So that program was out there. We saved a lot of businesses. We saved millions of businesses from economic disaster. Next one. Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is not my slide. Thank you, Renee. I think that's the end of my slides.
No, thank you, John. And this was so helpful because there are a lot of resources the SBA has. Just really quickly, John, I think we have a couple extra minutes because I know usually we sometimes go through some of those resources as well. So just wanted to uplift a couple of those. If a business owner, just wanted to know more about disaster relief, disaster relief, I know people were thinking like COVID relief. That's where people were going before. That program no longer exists, correct?
Correct. That's sunsetted.
So now it's only purely disaster relief. So like if I'm hit by, as we're seeing, tornadoes or these storms that are coming across, thunderstorms or hurricanes or anything that's impacting acts of God, that is where I would be able to come to the SBA under disaster relief and be able to apply for assistance. Is that correct?
That's correct. There'll be, of course, the national ones that you see on TV, the floods, hurricanes, fires, but sometimes it could even be a smaller impact. We had recently in Pennsylvania, in my territory, we had a factory explode, and it affected a lot of the businesses around it. That was the disaster declaration. If you go on to the SBA's disaster webpage, you can see all the declarations that happen throughout the year. And some we've never heard of on a nationwide basis, but we're there kind of as a backstop. If someone has insurance to cover their losses, that's great. But a lot of times there's this insurance shortfall, And that's where the federal government can come in and help with that program.
Wow, thank you, John. And just one more time, how can people connect to the SBA? Can they just step on the SBA facility?
Well, you can, best way to find us is sba.gov, and you can navigate using your zip code to the nearest either SBA office or SBA Resource Partner office.
Wow, thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it.
Mhm.
We are now going to go into a segment where we're going to talk about some of the additional programs and resources from the Invest in America plan. So in the Invest in America, what does that mean in investing in America's small businesses? Well, the agenda is rebuilding the economy from the middle out and from the bottom up. So it's not top down as a result of the historic legislation passed. So earlier we talked about what those were. So that was the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, what are those impacts to small businesses? Well, one, it's an initiative to drive investment in the United States economy. It promotes domestic and foreign investments across various sectors, aims to strengthen economic growth, job creation, and competitiveness, provides resources and incentives to attract investments. And then also it supports sustainable development and long-term economic prosperity. But more importantly, it creates opportunities for businesses, entrepreneurs, and communities, and builds a thriving and resilient economy for all Americans. Let's go to that next slide. So when did all of these plans or investments happen? Well, the American Rescue Plan became law in March of 2021. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law became law in November 2021. The Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, became law in August of 2022. And the CHIPS and Science Act became law in August of 2022. And all of these have resources available for your business. Next slide, please. So the American Rescue Plan is a comprehensive economic stimulus package that was signed into law. This historic legislation provided $1.9 trillion in funding and addressed the ongoing challenges that we saw from COVID-19 pandemic. The key provisions of the American Rescue Plan included direct payments to individuals and families, expanded unemployment benefits, support for small businesses, and funding for vaccine distributions and aid to state and local governments. The plan aimed to accelerate the nation's recovery, create jobs, support vulnerable communities, and provide relief to the most affected by the pandemic. And if you want to see more resources, again, we're going to make sure that you're able to go to this website that's going to be sent to you all to the American Rescue Plan. Next slide, please. The American Rescue Plan also created the Community Navigators Program. This program is through the SBA and provides $100 million in grant funding that was awarded to organizations in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. It closes a resource gap for small businesses and underserved communities. They serve as hub organizations which establish ties to local groups. Priority focuses are on socially, economically disadvantaged small businesses, rural communities, women, and veterans. And to find out more and to locate a community navigator in your community, you can go to the SBA website and click on Community Navigators to locate one near you. Next slide, please. Now, the State Small Business Credit Initiative. This is also known as the SSBCI. The ARP, the American Rescue Plan, reauthorized and expanded the State Small Business Credit Initiative to provide $10 billion to support small businesses and empower them to access the capital needed to invest in job-creating opportunities as the country emerged from the pandemic. These funds were provided to states, the District of Columbia, territories, and tribal governments to promote American entrepreneurship and support small business ownership and democratize access to capital across the country including underserved communities. If you want to find out more on how to have access to those funds, you can go to this link. And again, if you want to go before, go to the Department of Treasury's website and go to State Small Business Credit Initiative, but it's also known as SSBCI. And again, we're going to share this PowerPoint presentation with you, and you'll just be able to click the link to get to it. Next slide, please. So making additional historic investments for support for small businesses that came out of the ARP, which was the Emergency Capital Investment Program, which is the ECIP. Treasury closed and funded approximately 8.38 billion in investments in 2022. There was support for community financial institutions, also known as CDFIs and MDIs, which are minority development institutions, provide loan grants and assistance to small and minority owned businesses, focused on low income and financially underserved communities, and then also wide ranging investments within those CDFI funds. There are 5 billion in new market tax credit allocations, 355 million under the bond guarantee program, and then over 580 million in other grant programs. So more of those resources are available. And again, we'll provide this slide deck for you to be able to click those links to see those resources and have access to them. Next slide, please. The bipartisan infrastructure law, which most of you know as the bill, was signed into law in 2021, as we discussed earlier. And basically, some of you also know it as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This was a historic investment of 550 billion in new funds for large infrastructure projects, supply chains, broadband, and drinking water made across the country. It expanded government contracts for small businesses, and it also empowered the Minority Business Development Agency, which it codified, making it its own permanent agency, elevating its director to now an undersecretary and providing more resources and authority. You can learn more about MBDA by going to mbda.gov. The bipartisan infrastructure also created good paying jobs, which means investment in infrastructure lead to job creation, which is going to stimulate employment in construction, broadband, and other related industries. And more specifically, you can go to build.gov, builduplocal.org, invest.gov, and internetforall.gov to learn more about resources for your businesses. And again, we will be providing this deck for you, so you'll be able to click those links. Next slide, please. The Inflation Reduction Act, also known as the IRA. This was signed, as we mentioned earlier, in 2022, and it was signaling a monumental step in addressing the climate change and clean energy, solidifying American leadership and spurring innovation to lower costs and advance the global clean energy economy. The IRA, with its 370 billion investments, aligns with President Biden's vision to establish the United States as a global leader in clean energy. By reducing energy expenses, promoting private investment, strengthening supply chains, and generating employment opportunity, the act paves the way for a better America powered by American workers. Let's go to the next slide. So the Inflation Reduction Act is designed to support businesses during periods of inflation, offers financial assistance and resources to help small businesses thrive, provides tax breaks and incentives for business growth and investment, supports workforce development and training programs, promotes innovation and technological advancements, and strengthens the overall economy by supporting small business success. Some resources that are coming directly from the IRA are like the Justice 40 initiative. It's also supporting U.S. supply chains across clean energy technologies, doubling research and development, R&D tax credit for small business, Invest in America /Clean Energy projects. And then also there's a Inflation Reduction Act Funding Programs Guidebook. And again, all of these resources will be made available to you, and you're able to click on them when we provide this slide deck to you. Next slide, please. Now, the CHIPS and Science Act. The CHIPS and Science Act stand for Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors, CHIPS, and Strengthening America's Strategic National Security Science Act. I know many probably did not know that. The legislation aims to address critical challenges in semiconductor industry and advance scientific research and development in the United States. The CHIPS component focuses on incentivizing domestic semiconductor manufacturing, promoting supply chain resilience, and reducing dependence on foreign sources. The science component supports strategic scientific research and development, particularly in areas as artificial intelligence, also known as AI, quantum computing, and advanced manufacturing. Next slide, please. So how are there opportunities for small businesses? Well, one, it's going to spur small business growth. The CHIPS and Science Act has catalyzed significant investments in American semiconductor manufacturing. And to date, companies have announced nearly $50 billion in additional investments, bringing the total business investments to nearly $150 billion already. Small business opportunities have already grown and ensure semiconductor incentives support equitable economic growth and development. The act will unlock opportunities in science and technology for historically underserved communities. And to find out more about how this can help your business thrive, you can go to chips.gov. And then also there's additional funding opportunities readily made available, and then also research and development programs too. And again, if you go to that chips.gov today, you can find out more resources that lead to those funding and research development opportunities. Next slide, please. And then also there's guides and templates to accompany the CHIPS incentive program. And also there's a notice of funding opportunity that's out. And so we'll make sure that you all have this. There's a pre-application and application document checklist. And then also if you go to nist.gov/CHIPS, there's more information that you can learn there to help with your business too. Next slide, please. We're actually going to skip the SBA section, and there is a Medicaid, because our amazing John went through that. So Medicaid renewals, just everyone with Medicaid, just so you know, you must renew your coverage this year if you haven't done so already. You need to update your contact information with your state Medicaid or CHIP agency. Responding to Medicaid CHIP renewal form when it arrives will help you keep your coverage. If you're a parent, you should respond even if you don't think you're eligible. Your kids could still be eligible. And then consider other options, right? If you're no longer eligible for Medicaid or CHIP, check if you can get through coverage through your employer, through the Affordable Care Act Marketplace, which is healthcare.gov, or through Medicare. And with that, we can go to our final slide, which one more. We are bringing this webinar to a close today. And if you have any SBA related questions, please feel free to email answerdesk@sba.gov. If you have any questions or want a copy of this webinar and did not register today, please email us at events@publicprivatestrategies.com as well. And again, this is being live streamed to Facebook, both to the PPSI and to the SBA pages. And so if you would like to see a repeat of this, please feel free. And then again, we are sending out the deck, so you're able to click those links for those resources, and additional resources will be provided that were mentioned by our dynamic speakers today. We want to thank Jill, we want to thank Anna, we want to thank John, our ASL interpreters as well, for participating and speaking and providing us resources. And we want to thank you all for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you all next month for our next webinar in this series. Have a great weekend. take care.